Lastly, for the community posts, BioBot, COVID-19 wastewater, measuring the levels of SARS coronavirus 2 in the wastewater. So this chart that you see on the screen, that's from last week. And at that time, United States COVID-19 wastewater levels, led by an extreme spike in the Northeast, are currently at the second highest level of the entire pandemic and rising sharply. So it's roughly around New Year's Eve that that is the week, the last week of the year is basically the highest spread week of the year every year. And where we're at this year is it's second only to the Omicron wave. So is this a problem? Yes, we're going to read an article in a minute about the risk of COVID-19 reinfections, which is really written in tame language compared to the actual threat. But we'll read that and then we'll augment it from there. But right now, COVID remains the number 3 cause of death in the USA. It also contributes directly to the number 1 and number 2 causes, which are heart disease and cancer. So the SARS coronavirus 2 directly injures the heart. That's the whole myocarditis thing, which you're more likely to get from the virus. There is some lower risk of getting it from the vaccine. Also, vaccinated people are less likely to get myocarditis from the virus because it increases your immune response to get rid of the damaging spike protein. But anyway, COVID can infect any tissue in your body, basically, that has ACE2 receptors, which is your brain, your liver, your lungs, your heart, your kidneys, lots of important stuff. It also attacks and kills T cells, which are one of the main pillars of your immune system. T cells go out and attack pathogens like bacteria, viruses, pathogenic fungi, and they also go through the body, and when your body detects nascent cancer, cells that start to divide in the wrong way, the T cells help to take care of that before it becomes, a big cancer that gets, run away and becomes dangerous. So you don't want your T cells to be attacked and killed by a virus. HIV is the only other virus that does that, and they don't do it in exactly the same way, but there are similarities. I know for me, when I had long COVID, and I've been avoiding it like the plague, I think that metaphor, actually, you don't have to say the like. I've been avoiding that plague ever since. But I had long COVID in 2020, I believe, stemming from a December, did I say 2020? 2021, stemming from a December 2020 infection, which completely wiped me out. I had the fatigue, I had the brain fog or brain damage that was impairing my cognitive abilities. I couldn't think straight. I couldn't hold thoughts in my head. My working memory was shot. But then that summer, I developed the worst sinus infection I've ever had in my life. I had to go on 2 rounds of antibiotics to get rid of it. That is not a thing that occurs to me, like, ever, pretty much. And this is also, we saw with the pneumonia going around, which seemed to be caused by common pathogens. So is this, reduced immune function due to people getting infected by COVID? I think it's likely. And I've shared the thing about the sinus infection that I had to go on tons of antibiotics to get rid of. I mean, it was like a really, really serious infection that my whole face was inflamed and in pain. It was not just that I had, blood when I blew my nose. It was like my face was exploding. I've never had anything like that ever. Now, I happen to be in pretty good health otherwise, but if somebody who is in basically good health and, I take reasonable care of myself, eat an okay diet, stay physically active, and I was getting signs of just my immune system, again, kind of like an HIV patient, my immune system was just not fighting stuff off that it should be fighting off. That's really scary. So if you keep getting that, and, what are the long-term issues going to be? So anyway, SARS coronavirus 2 reinfections continue to cause organ damage and disability, shortening lifespans and reducing quality of life, even when it doesn't cause sudden immediate death. In other words, that's not the only thing you have to worry about. But that's last week's COVID chart. Let's look at this week's COVID chart. This is updated as of the 9th, I think, from last week's data, because it's always a week behind because they got to collate it and get it on the website. Look at where we are now. This is way above any previous level, and again, it's second only to the Omicron spike. Now, I've been saying all through 2023, we were in a lull, and then we had a fall bump, and then it would remain to be seen what happens in the winter. But otherwise, it was following the 2021 pattern really closely. And indeed, it's continuing to follow the 2021 pattern because we're getting a big spike. It's not quite as big as the 2021 winter spike was, but the same way that that dwarfed what had been going on in the previous years, this winter spike is dwarfing what has been going on in the previous 2 years, in 2020 and 2023. So if you look down at the bottom, that's the regional chart, and that one's set to just the past 6 months. You can see that this is being led by an extreme spike in the Northeast, that yellowy orange section, followed by a very elevated surge level in the purple zone, the Midwest. Then even the Southeast, that pink section, is at like 850 or 900. That's well into surge territory. The West is a little bit lower. The West, I would say, is on the border between moderate and high levels. But the other three regions are definitely in surge territory. And just the Northeast is like just ungodly amounts. It's like 2,600. So, I mean, for reference, I would call low levels between 0 and 300 or 350. And then moderate levels, 300, 350 to like 750. Once you start getting above 750 into the 800, 900, 1,000, 1,100 range, you're in a surge. That's high levels. And then, so the Northeast right now is at like 2,600. It's just off the chart. So, and this has been sustained now for several weeks that it's been at really high levels. And as you can see, the Northeast starting to taper off. The other regions are holding kind of flat. But it doesn't look like the Northeast is even done yet. So now, if we are following the 2021 pattern, what followed 2021? Well, 2022, after the late winter and early spring lull that follows the winter spike pretty much every time, we had an unmitigated shit show of just sustained spread all through 2022. And so is that going to come up in 2024 again this year? I think it's possible. So what's the problem here? Because if you haven't died from COVID yet, aren't you safe? Well, no, because this is what happens with reinfection. The more reinfections you have, the more your risk of various health outcomes. This also goes up with age. So not every age bracket is at the same risk. And then there's other things, like if you're overweight or obese, which about 3/4 of the United States population is one of those two things, you're at elevated risk. If you have prediabetes or diabetes, you're at elevated risk. If you have like any kind of health condition, which if you're over 40 or 50, you're likely to have, you're at elevated risk. Now, is the risk elevated to where you're definitely going to get something that kills you? No. But it could set you back and age you 5 or 10 years. Do you want that? Do you want to be aged 5 or 10 years?